Hari's focus mainly lies in the field of security of IoT systems and cloud computing. And he is also an avid member of various security forums and have led the hardware security research team at the BIOS #1 CTF. CTF is Capture the Flag team from India. And he has hosted some major security events like SecCon in CTF, and has presented in various other university and industry conferences, including Cisco Offensive Summit, which is one of the most prestigious sort of like a conclaves that happens in India, I suppose. So his primary area of expertise is with cloud security and user experience design. Currently, he is engaged in identifying opportunities for automation to enable faster turnaround and standardized delivery in Cisco professional services. So this is a very short introduction, I should say. So his expertise would be realized by us during his session. Hari sir, please, you may go ahead.
Hello everyone, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
I can see you guys, so you can give me a thumbs up. Okay, good, good. Okay, so I know there was a session in the morning, and then you guys might be a little bit, tired and off. I'll try to make the session kind of interactive. We can try that, but at least, yeah, I don't want this to be a one-way session. So, whoever is moderating the session, please feel free to, break me in between and ask any questions any of the participants have, right? Like, if I'm talking about something and they want to ask the questions, please feel free to ask those. We'll try to make it interactive and then make it into a learning session like that. So yeah, as the intro, so my name is Hari. I'm from Cisco. I'm a software engineer with Cisco. And I worked with a lot of hardware security research stuff. So first thing what we are going to start is, I want you all to take out your laptops if you have, and then go to this website. So it's hackme2.netlifey.app. It's a application that we have hosted, where it's actually a game that I want you guys to play. So I'll play along with you, and then okay, then we'll discuss. If you guys visit this application, before you get started, just give me a thumbs up, so we'll start together. So if you are in the site, I can show you the website once again. Just let me know if you guys have noted the website. So, okay. Okay. So this is what you would see, right? All of you would see the screen if you are in that site. So yeah, so this game is a simple game of choices. So inside this one room that you see, there are a lot of devices kept. Right now, you have to click on each of these blue dots to configure it. As in, what will happen is, you are given 4 choices, and then you have to decide how would you approach this scenario, right? And later, towards the end, if you find all 10 devices, so there are 10 devices in this. 8 devices will have a blue dot and 2 are hidden. So you just have to click on all the devices and see what happens. Now, if you click on each device, then it'll ask you, okay, what should you do in this scenario? Now read through the scenario and then answer the question. Right. Now you have to complete this in 5 minutes. And if you don't complete it in 5 minutes, a hacker will actually come and exploit all of these devices automatically. Right. And then it will show you what you did wrong. Right. So we'll get started together. You can just give your name, just normal name, and get started. So you have 5 minutes now, and then after that we'll start the discussion. You have 2 more minutes. last 10 seconds. Okay, my devices are all getting explored. So I hope you guys are enjoying the game. If somebody already completed and have a 10 on 10, please raise your hands. If somebody scored about 5, that would also be amazing. Okay, I can see a lot of raised hands. That is really good. Okay, let's move into the discussion of what went wrong, right? I know you guys were given the scenario where you had to like configure a device. What would you do? Like maybe a router, click on the router, and okay, what password would you set, right? Or it would be like what setting would you choose for your smart vacuum cleaner? Now, why I wanted to bring this game to you guys is because see, security it starts with us, right? Even if you have the best firewall, the best anti-malware, everything, but if you are not configuring it properly or if you are not using it properly, then you are getting exploited. So today's talk, what I'll be walking you through is how are these attacks happening, pertaining to hardware security, and particularly I'll take you through IoT security attack vectors, because a lot of you can relate to IoT things, right? Smart everything, smart bulbs, smart vacuum cleaners. So you guys can relate to a lot of these scenarios that we are discussing today. And by the end of this session, I'm hoping that you can come up and identify some of these attack vectors for some of the smart devices that we'll discuss towards the end. So yeah, if you guys like the game, give me a thumbs up. We'll go into the discussion of what each of these devices did and then how can we delete that. I'm hoping all of you are done with the game. Okay, let's get started. So starting with the first device, that was your smartphone, right? So the smartphone, the scenario was like the delivery person asked that if he could like use your phone, right? Because this is not working, can they use it? Now, how was this scenario being used to exploit, right? So see, giving your personal device to someone else. Now that person could have actually scanned a malicious URL, right, or gone to a malicious URL and then infected your system with some malicious scripts, or he could have downloaded some software or application into your phone, and then that in turn will affect your device. So that was the scenario with the smartphone.
Excuse me,
the
sir.
next one, we have the smartwatch, right? So this is interesting. Now a lot of us wear smartwatches these days.
Hari sir,
are you able to hear me? Is the audio clear?
Hari sir, am I audible?
I can't hear you. I can see you speak, but I can't hear you.
Sir, I think the music of that game is still on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you hear me clearly now?
Yeah. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So should I go over the scenario once again?
Yeah, that should be better, sir.
Okay, cool. So sorry about that. Yeah. So for the smartphone, the smartphone scenario was that somebody, the delivery person, asked you for your phone, and then he wanted to just get the payment done, right? So the person could have used your personal device to like scan a malicious URL or a QR code, and then that in turn will lead to it downloading a malicious app into your phone, and then from there your phone is exploited. So that was the scenario there. The next one is the smartwatch. Now this is an interesting one because a lot of us have smartwatches these days because they have gotten very cheap, right? And then a lot of us buy and keep these smartwatches. I'll tell you a story. So this happened in US in a military base. Now this person had a smartwatch like a Fitbit, and then they were using it on their early morning runs. So he was using it for like almost a month every day for his early morning runs. Now, this data from the smartwatch, like the map of where he was running, was actually out there in the public, right? Now, some hackers actually exploited this, and the fun part is that this was a secret US military base. Right now, the person was running around the base, and then the hackers got the exact map location of where the base is, where buildings are there, like what are all the items in that particular campus. So, just because the health data or the map data from the smartwatch was public, they had to later on fix this bug, but that is how bad things can get. Um, Again, in the smartwatch scenario, you can see, right, an average person's health data would cost around $250 on the dark web. And even if I hack your credit card, I'm just simply getting something like $6. So if I pay $6, I can get a credit card. I can buy a credit card of some person. Um, but for health data, if I'm exploiting somebody's health data and sharing it in the dark web, the price is so high. So now you get the motivation why hackers would want to have your health data. Like everyone has a smartwatch now, but you won't think like, okay, what are they going to do with what is my heartbeat, right? So this is all part of a collection strategy. Next up, we have a smart vacuum cleaner. So here the problem was the app when you were setting up the vacuum cleaner, it was asking for your camera and microphone permissions, right? Now, have you thought about this before, wherein you are setting up a device or you are installing this new application, and then suddenly it's asking for all permissions, like I want the camera permission, I want microphone permission, I want permission of all everything files in your phone, right? So I think nowadays Android and iOS have at least limited these, wherein only if the app actually requires these permission they give it. But again, this is in your control. If an application, if it's like a notes application where you can like simply take notes, if it needs your camera and microphone permission, then you would know there is some problem there, right? So if it's any third party application and it is asking for more permission than what it is supposed to do, then there's a problem. So the vacuum cleaner problem was it was asking for a lot more permission than what it needs, and then using that the hacker was able to exploit, right? He was listening through your microphone and he is able to exploit your camera. So that was the scenario there. Next, we have three. I'll just combine and go through them. We have the smart voice assistant. A lot of us have Alexas or Google Homes, right? So this is again another crazy story. A person's girlfriend, they actually called him in his home phone, right? And then you can actually you might have seen this in movies where like the phone actually goes into the um, mode where you can record a message and it will play, right? Now the girlfriend was speaking over speaker, right? She was really mad at this guy, and the Alexa was kept near the phone, right? Now she is able to control the Alexa through issuing voice commands using the phone. You get it? So if you have a phone nearby your Alexa, and if I say, "Hey Alexa," it will respond back to me, right? Now I am able to turn on the guy's, garage. Alexa, open garage. Alexa, turn on the bulb. Alexa, turn on the fireplace. Right? I start issuing these commands, and now his entire house was on fire basically, because after she was so mad that she issued so many commands over phone that his electricity bill would have been a very good one when he came back. So that is again regarding smart voice assistants. That's one precaution at least we can take to keep it away from these devices that they can use to. This is basically a dump attack, but still it did happen. So keep it away from other audio devices, I would say. Next one is very interesting, IP camera. And I want a raise of hands here. How many of you have heard about Mirai attack? Mirai botnet. Okay, we have, okay, good. So here, I am 100% sure. I mean, all of you will have home routers, and almost 90% of you, the home router username and password would be the default. I'm sure nobody would have changed it. I'm not talking about your Wi-Fi password. I'm talking about your router username and password. The password, like the admin root or admin password that you use to configure the router. Right. Now, this was the context um, or the base that the Mirai botnet used, wherein a lot of devices across the internet, right? Um, they have these default username passwords. So it could be root, default, admin password, all of this stuff. And then because people just leave it like that, what happens is even me, just going around looking for open IPs. If I can get into that IP and type the username, the default username password, I can get into the system. There is basically no security there, right? Even in your campus, if you actually see there, you can actually find that a lot of these routers, IP cameras, they would have a lot of these default username passwords that are being used. But as a good security measure, what the first thing that everybody should do is change their default username passwords. Let it be a router, let it be a IP camera, any new product that you get, right? That has to be updated. Next, we'll go through some of the phishing items that we have seen, right? So the laptop and the desktop, what we were seeing was these were phishing attacks. Now, how many of you know what is phishing? Okay, good. So, see, in cybersecurity terms, it is basically when an adversary is acting himself as the original sender, but it's basically sending you scam, right, through links, at least at an enterprise level, wherein we receive a lot of emails saying you have won this, there is an offer, click on this right now, or else it would be done, right? So you are made to you are like basically pressurized to click on a link and then go there. I would say phishing is the most common or the most the biggest cyber attack that we face on a day-to-day life. People still fall prey to all of these items. So yeah, that's still continuing. So this game, what we saw was just an icebreaker for you guys to be in the mindset of, okay, what is a hacker doing? What can we do? Right. So that was the whole scenario of what we did with the game. I'll play a video now. You guys listen to the video, and then later on we'll have a discussion on what the attack is about. Just a second, let me pull that up. Are you able to see my screen? Like, is it black now? Okay.
Yes.
Stuxnet is a new type of weapon, a digital worm, and it was used in the first cyber attack known to have caused physical damage in the real world. While they have not admitted to it, the United States and Israel allegedly created Stuxnet in order to slow Iran's effort to build nuclear weapons. The worm targeted the computers that ran the machines used to turn uranium into nuclear fuel. The Stuxnet worm spun many of the centrifuges out of control, blowing them up, all without the Iranians figuring out what was causing the explosions. Eventually, though, Stuxnet got loose and spread across the world, infecting computers in more than 100 countries. The worm was quickly noticed, and the operation publicly exposed. Cyber experts were alarmed by Stuxnet and feared its potential for destruction. While this worm only attacked specific equipment related to Iran's centrifuges, experts fear that the same digital technology could be used to manipulate the computers that run a huge swath of industrial activity and infrastructure projects, like factories, dams, and electrical grids. Disrupting or destroying any of them could cause enormous physical damage and could potentially kill large numbers of people. This has led some to suggest that cyber weapons have the potential to be weapons of mass destruction. And just as international treaties were created to control nuclear weapons, many countries and individuals are calling for treaties to control the use of cyber weapons. But that is unlikely to happen anytime soon, because cyber weapons pose unique challenges. They're often designed to be covert, so victims may not even realize that they were hit by a cyber attack. For example, while the Stuxnet worm was destroying the centrifuges, it sent false information to the Iranian scientists' equipment, pretending that everything was operating normally. Even if victims do discover that they were attacked, they may not be able to determine who attacked them, because hackers can mask their identities and cover their digital tracks. This makes it harder to enforce potential cyber weapon rules because countries may not know whom to attribute a violation to, and as a result, may not know who to punish. On top of these challenges, there's no international consensus on what the cyber rules would even be. And so, without any rules, countries are building up their cyber defenses, making it harder for cyber attacks to succeed. But there's no perfect defense against a cyber attack. For example, the Iranian nuclear facility was underground and air-gapped, completely cut off from the internet. So those who wanted to damage the Iranian program couldn't sneak Stuxnet into the facility online. Nevertheless, they targeted the hardware suppliers for the facility and put it on their electronic equipment, which eventually made its way into the nuclear facility. This infiltration tactic makes it near impossible to completely protect any system from cyber attacks. With globalized supply chains, every country is vulnerable to foreign cyber weapons. So many focus on building resiliency, making sure that important systems and infrastructure can quickly recover after a cyber attack. And countries are also racing to develop stronger cyber weapons, hoping to deter other countries from attacking out of fear of retaliation. They are also seen as a new tool to respond to extreme security threats like terrorist attacks, or even to counteract sanctions. More countries than ever are armed with cyber weapons. And every country, rich, poor, big, and small, is vulnerable.
Can you hear me? I know that was a little bit of a scary video, but that's actually at least the truth of what is happening, right? I'm hoping you guys understood a little bit about Stuxnet, right? So this attack basically, opened eyes for a lot of people on what a cyber attack would actually do, right? Because we feared humans more than anything else before. But when such an attack was unleashed, what happened was this attack was on nuclear power plants, right? So Stuxnet, what it would do is it would mimic the centrifuges. So it will send false information to the control center, but instead what it will do is it will break the centrifuges that are working in a nuclear power plant. And you might have seen the method through which they actually brought in this particular worm into the nuclear power plant systems, right? So they couldn't download anything, right? They couldn't send it over email and then somebody downloaded it. What happened was the worm was programmed inside circuits, and when these circuits were brought inside the nuclear power plant and plugged in, that's when it got infected. That's how all of these systems got infected. So this is what we call, say, as a supply chain problem, right? So you would have everything in your control to secure the systems. You would have firewalls in place. You would have air-gapped the entire system. But what happened here was the vulnerability or the malware or the attack was introduced through hardware, right? So they reprogrammed it, and then when the hardware was plugged in, it spread. And then what happened was Stuxnet actually spread to almost all of the nuclear power plants across the globe. So this happened in India as well, but Iranian like that is one place that it got affected a lot. We came up with a patch as soon as possible, and then it was stopped. Right. So that's a good overview of what is Stuxnet, and then how through hardware something like this could create such a big havoc. Next up, what we'll be learning about is a concept called botnet. Right. How many of you have heard about botnet? Raise of hands. Good. So let me try to put it out there once again. Right. So botnet is nothing but if a lot of systems come together like under a command and control. So a hacker might have exploited a lot of systems in the past, and then they all act together to do some malicious activity, right? So at least in our case, what we'll talk about is Mirai, right? What Mirai was used for, and then how such a botnet can bring a lot of havoc to this world. So botnets are majorly used for DDoS attacks, that is distributed denial of service. So if I send SSN college a lot of requests at once, you know what would happen, right? The college site would go down immediately. But we have a lot of systems wherein if one person is sending a lot of these requests to a site, they can block that one person, and then the problem is averted. But what happens if 1 million devices are compromised and each of those devices are sending 1 million requests, right? So that's what happens in case of a botnet. Attackers compromise these devices. Now these are not just computers or phones. Attackers compromise the things that we just saw before, right? IP cameras, smart bulbs. This could be any IoT system, anything that's connected to the internet. And we just saw that default passwords and usernames are just out there. So anybody can basically come in, enter these default username passwords, and then now you have access to that full system, and then you can make that device a part of your botnet. So botnets are very scary, and they are used mostly for denial of service attacks, right? To bring down sites and systems. They are also used for Bitcoin mining. So you might have seen, so it might start with phishing where you click on a link and you download something into your computer or your phone. Your phone or computer then becomes part of the botnet, right? And then it starts mining for Bitcoins. You wouldn't know, you would see immediately that the temperature of your laptop is rising. You're seeing that high performance being shown on your laptop, right? Like suddenly it's heating up so much. It did not have any problem. Your battery is draining very fast, because this could be symptoms that your system has been infected by a botnet, and in the background it is actually mining for Bitcoins or doing some malicious activity. So this is what we have seen happen. Next up we have Mirai, right? So Mirai was a botnet that was actually used to exploit, I would say, the world, right? Because of Mirai, the north coast of US did not have internet. Why? Because this was created by some kids, not kids I would say, but their intentions were not to hack the entire world, but their intentions were more like they wanted more Minecraft servers. So what they did was they wrote a script, right? So they had a list of default username passwords. This is basically like root admin, root password 123, all of that, right? So they had a list of these username passwords, and they basically scanned all the IP ranges, right? If this IP is a match, then enter root username and password. Now, like to their surprise, a lot of these devices across the world were using these default username passwords. So they had a collection of more than 1 million devices that they could control now, right? And because of that, even the internet in US went down. So that's the scale of a small problem wherein you could have just changed the username password, but that leading to something like much bigger. Here I'll show you a demo of an actual webcam. So this is somewhere in Mumbai. this is a actual live feed coming right now from there, right? Somebody hacked into this webcam and it's showing. It's actually a school or a hospital. I've seen a lot of kids here. It's their basically reception. So this would be happening everywhere, right? Even in our campuses, hostels, where if the camera feed is made public, or if somebody knows the default username password, they can just simply log in, and then, you know, this is on the internet. I'm not even connected to their webcam. You can just see what's happening there, right? This is available across India, across the world, where people just post these exploited webcams, and then, you know, this is basically, you know, spying on them. So that's how dangerous and scary these things are. So I'd like to stop for any questions. If you have any questions, if you have come up across any of these scenarios, you can share that with me. Any questions from the participants?
Students, you have any questions till now? Do you want to know about any other attacks that has happened?
No, sir.
Okay, I'll show you another video. This is interesting as well, right? We'll go through the video and then we'll discuss this.
It's not fun to have your 2-ton SUV's brakes hacked just as you're parking in front of a ditch.
Okay, hold on tight. Hold on. Oh,
That's what I've learned from Charlie Miller and Chris Valasek, a pair of hackers who have spent the last year developing a piece of software that can wirelessly sabotage this 2014 Jeep Cherokee. It hasn't been altered in any way. There are no devices attached to it. But like many thousands of Jeeps around the world, it can be remotely hacked over the internet through a cellular connection to its entertainment system that would allow someone to take over its steering, its transmission, and even its brakes. To demonstrate that, I'm going to act as today's crash test dummy and drive it on the highway here in St. Louis, while Charlie and Chris hijack its digital systems from Charlie's house miles away. They wouldn't tell me what they had planned, but they assured me that it wouldn't be anything life-threatening.
remember, Andy, no matter what happens, don't panic.
It's not the first time I've driven a car while it's being attacked by these two hackers. But in 2013, they were in the back seat, and their laptops were wired into the vehicle through a port in its dashboard. Now they're sending the same sort of attacks remotely, and I have no idea what they might do.
He's going as fast as I've seen him, so.
So first we're going to turn the fan on him.
Yeah, let's turn the fan on, see if he even notices.
All right, something just turned on, all the fans and AC and stuff. I didn't do that. The trick started small. Oh my God. There's a picture of Charlie and Chris in tracksuits that just appeared on the dashboard. But as I drove down the interstate, things started getting unpleasant and very loud. Perfect. I can't turn it down.
This was such a fun video. Steve Oke got enjoyed
And now the air conditioning is blasting, the music is blasting, and I can't see anything because of the windshield wiper fluid.
Okay, do it. Do it. Kill the engine.
So we're killing the engine right now.
It says park sense. Actually can't accelerate. I stomped on the gas, but the Jeep slowed to a crawl. It says 43 miles an hour, but I'm not going that fast. I turned on my hazard lights, but I was still stuck in the right lane with no shoulder to escape onto. Guys, I'm stuck on the highway.
Oh, I think he's panicking. He's not gonna be able to hear us with that radio. It's so loud.
Guys, I need the accelerator to work again.
The accelerator. It won't work.
You're doomed.
Seriously, it's dangerous. I need to move.
You gotta turn the car off.
Okay.
Now you should be good to go. Semi drove by.
All right, I'm gonna pull over because I have PTSD. Charlie and Chris have only tested the full range of their attacks on a Jeep Cherokee. But they say that hundreds of thousands of late model Chrysler vehicles may be vulnerable to a feature called Uconnect, an internet-connected computer in the dashboard known as its head unit.
These cars' head units expose a particular service that probably they didn't want to. It lets you do things like query it for information like the GPS or the VIN or all sorts of other things, but it also lets you just run commands.
You have to first break into the car remotely over the cell network and then move laterally if you want to do things like send CAN messages. And those are the messages that we can use to control things like steering or the windshield wipers or braking.
They plan to release a portion of their exploit code at the annual Black Hat Hacker Conference next month. They've also alerted Chrysler, which is issuing a security patch. But they say a lot more needs to be done to protect a new generation of cars that are increasingly connected to the internet and potentially hackable. You guys basically brought this car to a standstill while it was driving on the highway, which, I mean...
Yeah. So this is also a very famous hack. It's called the Jeep hack. Why? Because, this happened. So have you ever thought of this happening like to a car? Like heard about this, right? So yeah, this is an actual thing, and this is a very old video. This is from 2014. Okay, now we are in 23, and then all the cars coming out now can do this. So in cars there is something called as a CAN bus. Okay, so that is basically a connection between all of its systems: the engine, the blinkers, the like the fan, everything communicates through this one thing called CAN bus. And the car needs it because it needs to communicate with its different systems, right? Even the brakes, everything, none of those are mechanical now. Like when you press on a brake, it's not actually mechanically stopping it. It's sending a signal to a system, and then the system is braking, right? So what happens is if somebody exploits like the CAN bus, they have information on all the things, right? How to control your engine, how these different things work and all that. So that was a video on Jeep hack. So next part, what we are going to do is, I've shown you a lot of these attacks, right? We have talked about, we've seen Stuxnet, we have seen Mirai, we have seen Jeep hack. You played a game on a lot of these, like what would you do in the scenario kind, right? Now I'm going to walk you through in this next part of the session on what are the attack vectors, right? Because I was telling until now it was hacked, right? Or it could be hacked, but how do they do it, right? So what are the attack vectors that bad adversaries would use to exploit such systems? So to get started on that, here I'm talking in context of an IoT system, right? So it could be an IoT system, and these are the different layers at which a system like this can be attacked. So at first we start with the network. So this would be how is the device connected to the internet, because it's Internet of Things, right? So, or it has to be connected to something. It does not have to be the internet. If it's like connected cars, all Tesla cars would be connected together. So that could be the network, right? The first layer would be the network. The next one would be the front end, like the web part, where it either has a portal, right? Don't think in car terms, think of a smart bulb, right? You have a application that you can just click on a button on and it switches on, click on off, it switches off, right? So then there would be the web part. It's the front end and back end that is controlling. That's the application, basically. That's the application controlling this device. So that is the mobile app part. So Android and iOS. So after web, we have the mobile application. Most of these devices come with a mobile application. Then we have the major one, that's the wireless connectivity, right? So IoT devices, like even your smart watch, bulb, everything would be connected either through Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, right? That's how you're connecting to the device. So the next layer would be your wireless connectivity. And the next attack vector is the firmware. Now, firmware is the core software or the main code that is like running the device, right? So I'll just explain the layers now and then go into how exploiting one of these would create a problem. So then we have the firmware, OS of the IoT devices. After that, we have hardware hacking. Now, for this, after all of these, after like 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8, you need access to the device. You need access to the physical device, right? Now, the 6th one is hardware hacking and fault injection. Basically, hacking into the actual device hardware, like changing stuff, like adding more stuff to it. And then the 7th one would be storage medium. Basically, taking the memory out, right? Dumping the memory from the actual device itself. The last one is the input-output ports. These could be like your USB. There are also I/O ports like something called UART and JTAG that you find in devices that are used for debugging. Right. So at least from the attack vectors for say an IoT device, looking at from a hardware security perspective, these are the major ones. So we have network, web, mobile application, wireless, then the firmware, then the hardware itself, and storage medium and input-output ports. Right. So from this list of 8, I'll be discussing the major ones. What we've seen a lot of these hackers exploit, right? How are a lot of these IoT devices exploited, and how are they doing it? So starting with wireless connectivity, right? So when you think about wireless, we always go, first thing is Bluetooth. Most of the devices connect through Bluetooth, right? And for a lot of these IoT devices, it uses something called as Bluetooth Low Energy. You'll see it BLE written in your, like, if you open the cover, you can see it, right? BLE. Why do they use BLE? Because battery is the main guy, right? Because you have something, a smart device. Now it has to work for an entire day, right? What happens if your watch will only work for 2 hours? Then you have to charge it again, and then it will work for another 2 hours. It's basically useless, right? So that is when BLE was invented, because it is Bluetooth low energy. It consumes a very less energy. It's very energy efficient, right? And then it can be used to communicate this data. So for a device to be smart, it has to send all this information to the internet, process it, and then make something out of it. So so that's why BLE was implemented, because it is energy efficient, right? And it's a good protocol for Bluetooth. Now what happens with BLE is, these are the 3 main attacks that we have seen happen to BLE. Now the first one is called eavesdropping. Eavesdropping is nothing but if a third party is able to listen into the data that is exchanged between the 2 paired devices. Now think of this as, again, your smart watch and your phone, right? So whenever like you walk around or something like that, what happens is your steps or the kilometers you walked or the heartbeat get sent to your phone through Bluetooth or BLE, right? So that the phone can process and show you data. Okay, your heart rate is too high, or you have walked 4 kilometers in the morning. That's how it shows you the data, right? So what if instead of it sending it to the phone, I am taking that information from in between, right? Now I am getting this information as well. Now this is very useful if like I want the health data of somebody. BLE is actually exposed to eavesdropping kind of attacks, as in, even though there is a proper pin kind of a method that only the device can communicate with the like the smartphone, but eavesdropping is a open vulnerability that's found in BLE. The next one, I think you guys have heard about this, right? Man in the middle attacks. If you are like aware about normal cybersecurity terms, also we have heard about man in the middle attacks. So that same attack is possible in terms of hardware security as well. So man in the middle is nothing but somebody is there in between these 2 devices, right? So what will happen is like I can come sit in between 2 of you guys, right? Now you might be telling your friend, hey, can you tell can you tell her to give me that particular book? But instead what I will tell her is, she is telling that you are a very bad person. What will happen, right? So what happens in a man in the middle attack is basically it's like gossiping, but what happens is, see, you will be sending data to the other device thinking that you're sending the data to the other device, but instead another device will be in between your communication, right? So I will receive it from you, and then I can do anything. I can change the data, right? So when you were actually sending an email to your principal requesting for a leave, I can just change it to, hey principal, I'm going on vacation and I don't care, right? I can change it like that and send it over. So that's what happens in man in the middle kind of attacks, and this is also very prone. So if you're looking at, say, health data, if your heartbeat is at like 160, that means you're about to die. And then I change it to 100 and send it to the application, it won't even alert the emergency contacts, right? So there are some movies made on this, right? People are actually controlling someone's pace. What is it called? The device that you put it on your heart to help it work, right? So people are actually hacking into that and doing a man in the middle attack, so they are able to control the heartbeat of a person. So it is at that level these exploits are happening. It's all because of what are the technologies that we are using at the backend. The next one is again denial of service. You have heard about this, right? Basically, like the thing shouldn't work. Now, denial of service would be something like in a car, right? Here, denial of service would be shutting down the engine. What happens if you're driving on a highway and then I'm able to shut down the engine, right? So you won't have any control over what is happening. So these three, eavesdropping, man in the middle, and denial of service, are one of the major attacks that we have seen in these IoT devices. Next layer that we'll go into would be the firmware. The firmware, you guys know about what a firmware is like, at least on a device level. Can give me a show of hands of if you know what a firmware is. Okay, are you able to hear me? Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Sure. See, firmware is the base code that a system needs. So if the firmware for a smart bulb would be, if I get a signal saying on, switch on, and if I get a signal saying off, switch off. Now that is the code that's written on the device itself, right? Like for every device, it needs the core code. That's what we call it as a firmware. Like your laptop would have something called as BIOS. That is the first code that gets executed, and then the operating system gets loaded. Like for a speaker, it will have a firmware that says if I push this button, then switch off. If I push this button, increase the volume, right? So it is the code that basically says it's basic. The device's basic use would be programmed in the firmware, right? So every device would have a firmware, and whenever you buy a device, it's already there. So you just have to turn it on. It works, right? Now, the best way to get a lot of, or how to exploit the device is get its firmware, because if you know how it is working, then to exploit it becomes a lot easier, right? So the layer on firmware, what happens is these are the different methods that attackers use to get their hands on the firmware and then later on change it or make use of it. So I'll walk you through the different ones. The first is the vendor's website itself. Like you must have seen, like even when you update your phone, you can either update it like normally, or you can go to like the smartphone's web page and you can actually download the firmware and flash it on your own. So similarly, a lot of these vendors, they only publish their firmware so that people can install it on their own. But what happens is, if you're publishing your code like this, right, a lot of bad actors can use that to exploit the devices. Now, normally there are a lot of methods like code signing and like encryption there, so you can't see the entire code. But there are a lot of other methods to like view that as well, right? So the first way would be from the vendor's website itself, attackers can collect the firmware and then exploit. One another major way is dumping from the device. So if you have physical access to the device, say like your smart bulb, right? I have the smart bulb in my hand. Now I can connect to the debug ports like UART or JTAG. These are debug ports that the factory itself put it in there so that in case if you return a device, right, saying the smart bulb is not working, they can actually connect to this device and troubleshoot, okay, what was the problem, right? Or if you send a router back saying it is not working, they won't just throw it away. They'll connect to the debug ports and see, okay, what was the problem? Can we fix it? So that's why these ports are there. Now attackers can actually also open up the device and connect to these ports and then, do stuff like dumping the firmware from the device. So they can actually copy the firmware what is already on the device into their system, analyze that, and then do malicious activity. So this is another attack vector on the firmware side. So what do you get out of extracting a firmware? Right now we've got the firmware, it's extracted. What are the things that are interesting inside that, right? So some of the major things would be inside the firmware. We would see the API keys, right? Like for a smart bulb, your firmware would have your Wi-Fi username and password, right? And the Bluetooth encryption key, because these are things that are stored in, right? Now, if you have access to the physical device and then you are able to dump the memory, these are some of the major things. Like these would contain, like the dump would contain sensitive URLs. We can have access to API keys. There would be private certificates that the device is using for authentication, right? So this is why attackers actually go or use this particular attack of dumping firmware and then analyzing it. Next up, we have hardware hacking and fault injections, right? So in this, what the attacker is doing is they have the device in hand. Say, think of a router, right? They have the device in hand, and now by physically connecting to the device, as we discussed before, they can dump the firmware, right? They can alter, like they can change how the thing works itself. Like if a smart bulb is like, if you send on and it works and off, it goes off. But with hardware attacks, they can add more functionality, not useful functionality, but to basically send your Wi-Fi username and password all the time, right? Share it with the hacker. So they can add some of these functionalities. They can also, if the thing is not, if they are not able to exploit the system, they do something called as fault injection, right? What they do is, say for some chips, there would be a fuse wherein if you try to mess with it, it will automatically blow the fuse and destroy the memory. That's a good thing because we don't want attackers to get it. So when we introduce some of these methods like fault injection, what happens is, even though the system itself has a lot of security mechanism, we can trick it into behaving like it's not being attacked, but it is normally working, right? So fault injection attack works in a way that it is getting confused and we are able to extract data out of it. So yeah, that was a quick overview of what are some of the attack vectors that we have inside an IoT system. I have a small activity plan for you guys, right? We are almost nearing the end of the session. So I want you to form groups. If you can, like 2 of you can be together, right? And then I would give you an activity, and by the end of I'll give you 10 minutes to discuss. And then I want you to come up with how you would approach attacking these devices, right? So these are the 5 devices that I have. You can pick one from this. So 2 of you form a group, and then you can pick one device from this, right? Like 2 people can pick the same one. I'm okay with that. And at the end, if you can share what would be the attack vectors that you would use to exploit this device. So we have like seen a few of the attacks that we have seen before. Just to summarize all that, it's okay if you only understood maybe one of those attacks, right? It's still fine, but try. Also, you can go ahead and Google, right? That's totally fine. The idea is for you to think and come up with how an attacker would exploit any of these devices. So 2 of you can form a group, take a device, and then if somebody is done, just raise your hands and then we can discuss. Okay. And there is one more thing. The rule is whoever comes up with the more reasons or comes up with more reasons on how to attack this would get more points. Okay. So we'll have a point system basically, and then the winner we'll announce at the end. So whoever can come up with more reasons to attack the device will get more points. And the other teams can basically challenge it as well. If they think the attack is not right, they can actually say, no, it's not right. So, okay, we'll start. If somebody gets it is done, you can just show your hands, and then we can discuss.